G'day everyone. Today we're diving into two stories about taxpayer money. The risk of fraud, government overreach and oversight failures. One is out of Minnesota in the US and the other one is right here in Australia, and it's called the Ndis. During the video I'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below and give me your reaction. First, we're going to talk about Minnesota. A viral video by an independent content creator called Nick Shirley alleged widespread fraud at multiple childcare centres in Minneapolis, including that one that became infamous on social media for having a sign that spelled Quality Learing Centre instead of Quality Learning Centre. Since then, the centre that's received more than $1.9 million in funding, that's about 2.8 million Australian dollars, they've since closed. Other reports calling this fraud statewide, not just at that one childcare centre, and then there's even more reports, of course, calling it nationwide. And the US Attorney's Office saying that just Minnesota, the value of this fraud seems to be about $18 billion. Yes, that's 18 billion with a B. The frauds are being alleged not just at the childcare facilities, but all over government assistance programs. And they are including this Feeding the Children program called Feeding Our Future. It's a program that was started during COVID, and one tiny little facility was reportedly claiming that they fed 5,000 to 6,000 children a day. But no one ever saw more than about 40 people ever go into this little soup kitchen. The program quickly blew out across the state to $250 million, and even Merrick Garland, the Attorney General under the Biden administration, said that this was the largest pandemic fraud scheme. Other scandals included the Integrated Community Support System program to assist people with their disabilities, similar to our NDIS, National Disability Insurance Scheme. Their program started in 2021 with a budget of just $4.6 million for Minnesota, but quickly blew out to $180 million by last year, 2025. And just to name one more program that fraud's alleged, is the Housing Stabilisation Scheme. That's a scheme that uses federal Medicaid funding, again like our NDIS type funding, to help the homeless. But this program started with a $2.6 million budget and blew out over a few years to $110 million in the same time frame that homelessness in Minnesota doubled. Before we go any further, I'm Rob. I'm just a farmer trying to survive in this crazy world just like you are, but I have an opinion and a voice, and I tell it how I see it. So if you'd like to hear that, please like, subscribe, comment and share this to spread my video, because it helps me make more of them and helps me get this stuff out. Maybe even consider buying me a coffee by scanning this QR code or clicking the link in the description below. All right, let's switch hemispheres to a program that costs Australian taxpayers billions every year. It's called the National Disability Insurance Scheme, or NDIS for short, because governments love their acronyms. The NDIS was designed to support the Australians with permanent disabilities, offering funding for therapy, equipment and care so they can continue living independently and theoretically cost less to the system. But this system has blown out and grown explosively. Here's a quick snapshot. 2021-22, the program cost $29 billion. Yeah, again, B with a B for billion. 23-24, it had blown out to $38 billion. 24-25, so to June last year, they spent 41.4, and this year the budget is $44.6 billion. That makes it almost the largest budget item in Australia, even outpacing spending on Medicare and aged care most years. Basically, its annual growth is above 20% per year, although Albanese is attempting to bring it down towards 8% growth by the mid-2026, and We'll see if he can actually do that. Here's a thinking point for you. Do we still need this NDIS, or should we scrap it and find some other way to help our disabled? Or should we just cap its growth, and then these organisations will have to fit within the cap? Much like the footy teams have got caps on how much they can pay their players. So where does all this money actually go? Well, the NDIS supports 700,000 Australians, but that number's rising. So that's currently an average of $37,500 per participant. One of the fastest segments of the scheme that is growing is autism funding. And current reports show that the autism funds are running at about $9.2 billion of that $44 billion. And that's doubled in the last couple of years. Geographically, New South Wales receives $17.8 billion, Victoria is $14.5, and Queensland not far behind at $12.7. Most money paid out is to major urban councils like Brisbane City and Greater Geelong, because they are the two highest per capita funded areas. Not just funded more because there's more people, but funded per capita. So what do you think should happen with that? Should they cap those areas? Should they send more money to the country to help the country people? Or should we just let it grow exponentially like it has been? Again, tell me your thoughts. Just like Minnesota has a controversy around the potential misuse of public funds, the NDS is not immune to any of these concerns. An internal NDIA review estimated that up to 10% of all NDI outlays may be non-compliant, fraudulent, or just have incorrect claims. So on a $50 million budget, that's billions. Like 10% of 50 billion is $5 billion. So $5 billion worth of fraud at a minimum, and they haven't even looked yet. That's just a big guess. Some of this money is also concentrated not just in its support, but a fair chunk of it just goes to admin. There's administration plans, there's the guys who do the plan management fees, and they're taking major chunks out of this money, and they're also taking major chunks out of running the programs. So if an NDIS worker gets paid $70 an hour to come and help clean and cook for somebody because they can't do it, the company that does them is probably charging around $200 an hour for that client, that person to go to that client's house, because that's their cut. I'm not sure that that's right, and I'm not sure that needs to continue. And I think people are getting ripped off something shocking. Apparently reforms are underway. They've started this thing, the federal government has started this thing called the NDIS Fraud Fusion Task Force. And although they like to claim that they've sent hundreds and hundreds of investigations to be investigated, they've only prosecuted 21 people. So it's not really cutting anybody down. I mean, I'm sure more than 21 people are joining the system every single day to try and defraud the system. What are your take on all of this? Should we be more tightly audited? And if so, tell me below how you think we should audit it. Let's contrast the two. A localised and federal scandal is happening in Minnesota, and it's looking like California will leave Minnesota in its wake on how much fraud there's going to be, according to what's going around on sort of social media at the moment. Federal government is looking to be indicted, with Ilhan Omar being singled out, being the Minnesota Senate representative, and Governor Walz has been referred to the Department of Justice for possible charges in relation to these scandals. So questions about oversight in the childcare, housing and the soup kitchen are many and still unanswered. Here in Australia, it's much the same. We've got a national decades-long multi-billion-dollar program with allegations of 10% fraud, which are unclearly quantified at this point, but they're utterly and obviously systemic. So we have a major political debate that we need to have. Not about whether the scheme should exist, but how to sustain it responsibly and how to remove the waste and the fraud. Taxpayers don't mind paying a little bit to help others, but we don't want it lining the pockets of people who are defrauding the system or just rorting the system in any way they think fit. Because Australians, we are a very compassionate people, but we need to work out how to balance this compassion and how to protect the taxpayer money. So again, down below, who do you think's doing better? The NDIS or the Minnesotans? And who thinks that they're doing a better job over there? Because I'm not really sure. Thanks for tuning in. These stories just show us that big government programs, whether in the US or Australia, just attract hope, but they also attract controversy. What's your take on the accountability and fraud prevention? Do you think the NDIS is value to the taxpayer? Comment and share this video with someone who thinks public spending like this is good, and let's keep this discussion going. But above all, guys, be safe out there.